We're in.
We're back with another episode of Talking Pictures with Tawana and Max.
It's specifically with Tawana and Max, because otherwise you'll never find the right one.
That was Max. I'm Tawana. I'm glad you said that because there's so many. So if you're listening to us on YouTube, possibly Spotify, wherever, in whatever time and space this reaches you, we hope you're doing well.
Mm-hmm. For me, the only competition is the TCM one. I don't care about all the rest of them.
Oh, really?
No, yeah.
To be honest, I don't pay any attention to anybody. Don't really care. Yeah. Hope you're doing well in whatever time you're listening to this. In the current time, it's a little bit shaky in real life, but
it's a bit touch and go.
It's a bit touch and go. We're on, to use a American football term.
Oh,
We're in the fourth quarter.
Sure, that sounds right.
It's tight.
I don't know anything about American football.
I thought you were going to help me out.
No,
okay, I'll stop there.
I'm the wrong person to go to for that.
I'll stop there. I'll just keep it to normal football.
I think fourth quarter was right.
It's 0-0 in a cup final, and there's 5 minutes left to play, and it's a little bit edgy.
I'll take your word for it.
But we're back with a new episode. Arsenic and Old Lace.
Arsenic and Old Lace. This was my pick. And I've got a lot to talk about this movie, but I want to hear your thoughts cold.
Okay. So, we don't talk about our picks prior to recording.
No. We never agreed to. We just sort of never did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense. This is the first time where I'm conflicted.
Okay.
From any of the picks we've had. Because on one hand, there are certain aspects of the film that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
On the other, there's other aspects that I don't.
Sure.
What I don't like is the comedy.
Interesting.
It didn't hit me as much.
Huh.
And I don't know why.
Yeah.
Because it is quite a big slapstick comedy.
It's a farce.
And I just couldn't get into it. And as I was watching, I was like, I like comedy. I love comedy.
Mm-hmm.
But I just can't get into this. Why is it? Is it because I feel like he's trying too hard for the laughs? And I wonder if me realizing that he's trying too hard for the laughs sort of made me go, well, I'm not gonna give you my laugh. I'm not gonna give you my laugh. That's clearly meant to be a joke. No, I'm not gonna laugh at that. Which is weird because, you know, I watch comedy specials all the time, and that's clearly what they're trying to do. But yeah, I can't quite put my finger upon it. But there were certain things I liked. And it wasn't the comedy.
Okay.
Which might not be great because it is a comedy. But I actually liked the darker elements of the story.
Okay.
It was the darker aspects of it. And I found the story really interesting because I'd never seen it before. How many times have you seen it?
So many.
Okay.
Not in a while, but this was one of my favorite movies as a kid.
Oh, okay. Okay. See, if I'd watched it as a kid, I'd probably react differently.
Sure.
But because I'm watching it now, there were certain things that I loved about it, and we'll get into them. But the darker aspects of the story, I loved. I thought it was really sort of... Last week we were talking about Casablanca and how it's sort of like a simple story. This one is actually more complicated.
It's quite convoluted in the way that...
There's so many threads that are sort of put together.
All these building layers.
And we'll get into those. But I was more interested in that and less interested in the comedy aspect of the film.
Okay.
What are your thoughts? Why this pick? First of all.
I chose it because of Peter Lorre and how last week I think I said that he wasn't really in Casablanca as much as I remember him. And I just love Peter Lorre as an actor, and I wanted more. I wanted more of him doing his thing. Or if it's, you despise me, don't you, Rick? And he's doing a lot more of that here too. Oh, Johnny, no, don't, Johnny, please.
Yeah.
I can't do, not the Melbourne. I can't go through. I need a drink to see this. Because I just think he's so fun. So I chose this because of him, basically. That was the connecting thought. I haven't seen this movie in quite a few years at this point. And I saw it for the first time when I was young, maybe like 7 or 8. And it was one of my favorite movies. It was one of the funniest things I'd seen.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And I still really like it. It's interesting what you say about the comedy. I laughed. This time around, I was finding different things funny than I thought funny as a kid. When I was a kid, I think a lot of the slapstick, sort of the one-liners, because the writing is really, really clever. The writing of this play is genius, and the way one joke leads into the next plot point, and that leads into the next joke, and it's just, they're slipped in there.
Yeah.
And so a lot of those little moments, like the cop waving his gun around and saying, come in, while he's explaining a screenplay, and then the cops come in through the door. Those little things where the joke sets up the next thing, that really tickled me as a kid. It was the first thing like that where I'd seen that the comedy was so complex and intentionally crafted that it all weaves together like that.
Can I just clarify when I say the comedy?
Yeah, please.
There were things that I actually did like.
Sure.
But the things I didn't like was probably more towards Cary Grant's performance.
Interesting.
Which is the interesting thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
How he was... I got it.
Yeah.
I understood it. But I just didn't like it.
Huh. Sure, that's fair.
That's actually quite I'm still so fascinated by that, because even I as I was watching, I was like, I understand, but I'm just not on board, and I don't know why. Sorry, carry on.
Carrie. So yes, as a kid, it was those clever joke crafting things that I was really laughing at. This time around, I thought those were all very fine and good, but I think I've just seen things like that are finely crafted jokes. I mean, so much has taken inspiration from this movie, and it's based on a play. It's one of the classic farces, and so it's been done and iterated upon many times after that. So that wasn't. I was amused. I laughed. I thought it was funny, but it wasn't like getting the belly laughs out of me. What was getting belly laughs out of me this time around was lots of Cary Grant's performance, and bits of Peter Lorre's performance. It was the character-based stuff, because a lot of the comedy in this movie is the characters just stewing in the situation.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you say that you thought he was doing too much at sometimes. That makes sense. He was definitely mugging to the camera with the eyebrows, and he was doing that a lot.
Yeah.
So I understand that. For me, if I hadn't seen it as a kid, I probably wouldn't be as amused by it as I am now. But for me, in the context of what this movie is, and comedies from back then, where things were so much more broad, something about his performance and the sort of character-based attitude this movie has toward a lot of the comedy really, really just got me in a way that a lot of modern stuff does that you don't see from back in the day. So maybe part of me is approaching this movie with all that context in mind subconsciously. But yeah, I fucking love Cary Grant in this movie. Just his exasperatedness throughout the whole thing. I realize that this movie is responsible for a lot of my humor sensibilities.
Well, it makes sense if you watched it as a kid.
Yeah.
It probably influenced you a lot. Okay. I think the general gist of the story is that it follows this character called Mortimer Brewster, who is a drama critic. He also writes his own plays, and he's skeptical about love. That was another thing.
Yeah.
They mentioned this at the beginning,
Yeah.
and they never actually explain. So he's skeptical about love, but at the beginning of the film, he's getting married.
Yeah.
It's never actually mentioned why he changed his mind.
No, he's just fallen in love with this woman, and he's a cynic, and I think he's sort of a poke at critics, and so him at the beginning they're at the marriage license bureau, and he's trying to act all non-suspicious and with the sunglasses and everything to try to keep it under wraps because he doesn't want people thinking he's a hypocrite.
That scene I really liked.
Yeah. When he's just looking around all awkward and just like, huh?
And the guy, I sort of asking him, like, what?
Yeah, I can't hear him.
Like, Mortimer Brewster. I wonder if it was done before, because you've seen that sort of comedy gag done before. Well, after in the sense.
Yes.
But I don't know if it was done before this. Because it was like, as I was watching, I was like, yeah, I've seen this before. I wonder if this was the first time anyone's ever actually done it. It's a clever gag.
Yeah.
It's a clever gag. But, you know, he's sort of, he's getting married and people recognize him. And it never actually, like, he's this big time drama critic. And the two reporters at the beginning, I guess at the beginning I thought it was that sort of aspect was leading somewhere, but it completely takes a left turn.
It's this movie. Comedy has evolved, and I think movies have evolved. Where these days everything feels like it needs to be part of the whole, and in this, there's quite a lot of throwaway stuff. The opening shots of this movie is a fight breaking out at a baseball game.
Yeah,
and that is nothing to do with anything. It's like it's a gag. There's this there's text on the screen saying, "This is a Halloween tale of Brooklyn where anything can happen," and it usually does. At 3 p.m. on this particular day, this was happening, and it shows a baseball game, and there's all these rowdy sports fans, and they all get rowdy, and a fight breaks out, and everyone joins in this brawl. And then it cuts away from that and just says, while at the same time across the river, in the United States proper, in all capital letters, there was romance in the air. So it's just like a shot at New York City or something, and it's never addressed again. I forgot about that entirely, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, because I was waiting for it to... like you said, normally you think, oh, you're bringing up something to sort of fill it out later on.
The opening shots of a movie are typically very important.
Yeah, and it's like... So I'm looking for it, and it's like, oh no, it's never addressed.
Throw it away. Forget about it.
But then it makes sense when you bring up the opening title card. It makes sense. It makes sense. But then you meet his two aunts, Abby and Martha.
Abby and Martha Brewster.
With Teddy. Teddy. Now, I made a note before as soon as Teddy was pretending to be Theodore Roosevelt.
He thinks he is Theodore Roosevelt.
But the moment when he goes up the stairs and yells, "Charge!" I just made a note of like, he's crazy.
Yes, he's...
That was before the movie went any forward. I was just like, he's crazy. Why? I was thinking, why are they just casually letting this guy believe he's Theodore Roosevelt?
Yeah.
And he's running around the house yelling "charge" all over the place. And there's a great line. What is it? Ooh. No, I'm not gonna mention the line. It's for later.
Okay.
It's for later.
Okay.
I'll mention it later.
Sure.
But you meet these two aunts who are sort of set up as the sweetest, kindest old white ladies
Just
ever.
adorable.
And they're so nice, and they're Mortimer's aunts.
And as Abby walks, she does this little sort of trot gallop thing, and the music goes like bling 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 bling.
See,
bling,
in
bling,
that
bling,
moment,
bling, bling.
I thought about what you said about the music around
Yeah.
this period,
Yes.
where you went, yeah, it's a little, and I was like, yeah. Ever since you mentioned that, it's sort of shattered this wall. Where now,
God.
whenever I'm watching the films, I'm like, he's got a point.
It's like manually breathing. You're gonna be thinking about it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. It's like it sort of takes you into what's the word? Like surreal? Is that the right word?
It slowly turns up the heat around you.
Yeah.
You're a frog boiling in the pot, and you don't realize what you're getting into until it all slowly bubbles up, and it's like, oh, this is a madhouse.
Yeah. It's but the thing. See, I always have a rule where I cannot trust anyone who's too nice.
Sure.
So when I see someone too nice, I'm like, oh, what fucked up thing do you have?
Yeah.
Because I don't believe anyone's that nice. So when I saw the aunt, I was like, oh, something's wrong here. There's no one that nice. There's no one that lovely, that sweet. No, it's impossible. And then you find out that they have been killing old, lonely guys.
The reveal is beautifully done. Cary Grant, Morty Brewster, he's dealing with his wife, and so he goes out to get something ready so that they can go on their honeymoon. And we just see a little bit of the aunts with Teddy, and they're like, Teddy, go, we need you to dig another lock. And one of the aunts comes in and is like, oh, did you all have someone over for tea? And Abby says, yes, and dinner's going to be late too. And they keep saying these things that, like, what are they talking about? There's more behind these lines.
Yeah.
But you don't understand what they're talking about. And at one point she just points over to the window seat, a little chest by the window that opens up into a trunk. And you're like, okay, interesting, what's that? And you start piecing things together that something is off. You know the window seat's important. And then Cary Grant comes in, and he's wandering around, and he's just looking around, and he opens the window seat for a sec and moves on, and then does a double take.
Yeah.
And that moment, I love that moment. His double take, I think, is well done, and it's because you know, as the audience, you know the window seat's important. But then he moves past it, so you think, oh, I guess it's not important, and then it reels you right back in. Ugh. Anyway, yeah.
It's see, you mentioned about character earlier.
Yeah.
One of the most fascinating things, and there's a particular character I want to get into later on, but the craftiness, is that even a word?
Yeah.
Okay, the craftiness of each individual character was quite interesting to watch. And it's interesting that it was based on a play, because I don't feel like in sort of like archetypal movies, the leading man is like Mortimer. And when he is introduced like this big drama critic, who he is and how he behaves is completely outside of that.
Yeah.
You'd think like, oh, he's some sort of, you know, you get told he's a drama critic, you'd like, oh, he's this distinguished, probably sophisticated gentleman, but he's really not.
He's a dork.
He is.
He's a dork. It's what I love about Cary Grant's performance in this, is that the exasperatedness and the struggle of it. Struggle is funny. Watching struggle is funny as long as you're not emotionally connected to it. They say comedy is tragedy plus time. One of Mel Brooks's famous quotes is it Mel Brooks or is it someone else? I don't remember. But tragedy is when I get a paper cut. Comedy is when you fall into an open manhole and die. And it's just something about the way humans process events happening and process struggle, is that if we're not emotionally connected to it, it becomes funny, because I think it sort of breaks our our narrative of the world. And so Cary Grant knows that you have to laugh at this guy, and never makes it so that he's a fool that you feel pity for. He just makes it so that he's a fool that you can laugh at, because it's all coming from his own insecurities. He's trying to keep himself above everything, but it all keeps dragging him down as he's desperately trying to bubble up and hold on. Yes, so that's okay. Moving on. I'll get more into performance stuff.
You know, because once he finds the body,
Yeah.
he conjures up this plan in order to protect his aunts and get them out of this situation.
Yeah, I'm gonna pin it on Teddy.
Yeah, I didn't like that plan.
No?
I didn't like. I was, which is weird because I was like, no, they deserve to go to prison. I was like, Teddy's crazy, yes, but he's not killing anybody. It's these two ladies who are killing people. They need to go to prison. Why are you protecting them? I didn't like him trying to pin it on Teddy, and that's one of the big plot points throughout the film, is that he's trying to get Teddy committed.
Yeah.
And you sort of follow him throughout the film as he, gets the ladder.
He has to wrangle a judge, and then he has to wrangle a doctor, and then he has to wrangle the head of the sanitarium, and then...
And this is all happening throughout one night.
Yes.
It's one night.
It's all one evening.
It's all one evening. And going back to it being based on the play, most of the action occurs in one space, which I really love and I really appreciate, because there's something about, like, when people enter a different space or they go into a different space, you don't know what's in there, so your imagination sort of riles you up, and it's like, oh, I wonder what's in there. Or when characters go off and you're like, oh, what's happening there, and they come back and they enter the space. And I always find it interesting as an actor working in that you sort of removing yourself away from the action and then entering back into it, and the energy that sort of creates sort of in a play aspect. But in a film, it's completely different, because you've got cut and action and blah 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 blah. But if it's a play and it's ongoing, then you're constantly in that groove of, like, oh, this is the space that we're all playing in, but there's also action happening off the space, outside of the space.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mortimer's panic. He's chaos. Elaine, who is Mortimer's wife,
Played by Priscilla Lane. God, she's adorable.
she's adorable.
I love her.
She's cute.
And they're so cute together. That scene they have outside.
Yeah, there was something about because she sort of disappears for a good little bit, and then she's introduced back into the action. But one of the things I found interesting between the two of them is that they both felt like dorks.
Yeah, a little bit.
Like you could understand why this relationship worked, and I felt like they had great chemistry with one another as well.
Yeah. She's the daughter of the reverend that lives across from them, across from the cemetery that the houses are in.
Yeah.
So she's got this, like, girl next door energy, and it's like they've grown up together, and despite all his cynicism, he's got this sweetheart.
You know, it's interesting how they were getting Teddy to dig up the graves.
Yes, digging locks for the Panama Canal.
What's it called now?
The Panama Canal?
What's it called now?
It's still the Panama Canal. You're thinking of the Gulf of...
Oh.
I'm not gonna call it.
But I thought they were gonna change that too.
I think they're trying to, like, possess it. Like, the Trump administration wants to own the Panama Canal, wants to control it.
Oh, okay.
Because technically America did build it in the first place, but we kind of, like, just stormed into someone else's country to do it. Yeah.
That's a different topic.
Different world.
But digging for the lots. There's graves outside.
Yeah.
Why not just dig a big hole or multiple holes and just put them in there.
I think the Brewster sisters don't control the cemetery. It's the reverend and whatever part of the church he's running that runs the cemetery. So that would be too conspicuous. They got to keep it under wraps. You know, keep it all inside the house so that no one sees.
Okay. I guess. One of the things that I found interesting in their choice of victims is that they were targeting old men
Yeah.
that were lonely,
Yeah.
and they saw it as like a mercy killing.
They call it charity and mercy at one point. It's their first victim, who wasn't actually a victim. He was an old man that they let in. They're fabulously wealthy, so they don't have to work anything, and they just let people come in and stay in their house for a few nights and help people get off their feet. They're the kindest people you could imagine. But one old man keeled over with a heart attack one night, and they buried him in the basement, and they realized, hey, he died at peace. He was happy. He had nice food and nice wine and good company and a warm bed to sleep in, and he didn't have anyone else in the world, so we did a good thing here. We should keep doing that good thing.
They're all crazy.
It's a madhouse.
They're all crazy. And then he sort of capitulates when one of he's a nephew as well, Jonathan
Mortimer's brother.
Well, yes, technically.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yeah.
When Jonathan is introduced, and when he was first introduced, I was thinking, sort of looks like Frankenstein's monster. I don't know if that was deliberate, but because he's got the scars and they're sort of stitched up,
square face,
and I kept thinking, and he enters with Peter Lorre as Dr. Einstein,
hunched over like an Igor, following this Frankenstein's monster.
Dr. Einstein.
Dr. Einstein.
Like, no one questioned that. Like,
it's a name. People are named Einstein.
I mean, okay. But still, a German? What is he? Is he German in the film?
He's German. Or he speaks with a German accent.
Because he's, Peter Lorre is actually Hungarian.
Yes.
Austrian-Hungarian. So, yeah, he enters with Jonathan. And you can clearly tell that this guy's bad news. And when I said earlier about the different characters, the interesting thing is that when you get all of them, when you get the aunts, when you get Mortimer, when you get Jonathan, Dr. Einstein, and they're all in the space, individually, their characters, just forget them even talking, just their bodies in the space are so distinct. And I found that fascinating because Jonathan had this stillness within himself that I found really worked well when he was across Mortimer.
Yeah.
And there was just, because Jonathan sort of has like this power almost.
And menace.
He's the forgotten child who's disappeared for God knows how long.
The dark one that scared the aunts. And I don't even remember how he used to cut worms in half with his teeth. Kid's an absolute psycho.
Have you ever eaten worms?
No.
No?
No.
Have you ever eaten anything that you're not supposed to eat?
I've had dried mealworms once.
Huh.
Which are little bug larvae.
Okay. I've had pigeon before.
Pigeon?
Yeah.
Sure. I've eaten pigeon. That's just a bird.
Yeah, but it's really hard to catch.
Yeah.
So me and my cousin one day, we caught one. And we decided to cook it.
Holy shit.
To taste it.
Jesus.
Maybe we should be in the madhouse.
Jesus.
Kind of tastes like chicken. But it didn't have much meat.
How did you cook it?
Just fried it.
On the stove?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just fried it.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. kind of disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't have much meat, and we were like, we put in a lot of effort for this amount of meat, and it was not worth it. But yeah, now I know what pigeon tastes like. I don't have to wonder. You know, sometimes you ask yourself a question, you just have to find out for yourself.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, as a kid, you didn't think, what does a pigeon taste like?
Me, no. I just chase the pigeons around.
Yeah, you chase them around, but at some point you have to ask yourself, what would it taste like?
I wondered it. I guess the thoughts probably ran through my head across my life, but I've never followed through.
Because you did have someone beside you who went, yeah, let's find out.
Yeah.
But if you had someone who was like, yeah, let's find out.
Yeah.
But we've digressed. We've switched up. Yeah, Max eats worms and I've eaten pigeon.
Yeah.
So we might as well be part of Jonathan's crew. There was something that a running joke in the film where they kept comparing him to Boris Karloff.
Boris Karloff.
And I didn't get it.
Uh-huh.
Again, that's one of the things where you go, I'm sure that's a joke. And I'm sure it hits.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not aware.
If you don't get the reference, it'll... Yeah.
Now, I looked it up. Boris Karloff. Oh, actually, he does look like him. Yeah, he actually does.
Yeah.
Boris Karloff was the original actor to play Jonathan in the stage play.
Yes.
On Broadway.
Yes.
And now that I've seen his picture, I'm like, oh, yeah. And he played Frankenstein.
I was gonna... Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So
shit.
it's all a reference. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Now it clicks. See, when you know, it's really funny. It's really clever.
See?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Okay. I might need to watch it again. The more we talk about it, the more I'm realizing, okay, there's levels to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Wow. That's a cool one. Okay. Because I because me mentioning about Frankenstein's monster, I was just spitballing because that was like one of the things where I was like, oh, it kind of looks like Frankenstein's monster.
Mm-hmm.
But it's on purpose.
It's all on purpose.
Oh wow. Okay. Wow. That took
I was gonna bring it up at some point, but I'm glad that you
I'll
found
bring it up
first.
now because I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I kind of spoiled it. Okay. Yeah, I'm sort of taking that in now.
I'm delighted to capture this on tape, on digital tape. Yeah.
Wow.
So he's got Boris Karloff originated the role in the play. And I guess he didn't want to do the movie. So they got who was it that played him? Raymond Massey, who's another classic actor. Put him in all these prosthetics, put this big scar across his face. And we find out that Peter Lorre, Dr. Einstein, is a plastic surgeon. That's apparently I've given him 3 faces before. I can do another one. And he says that people keep saying that Johnny looks like Boris Karloff. And at one point, Aunt Abby or Aunt Martha says, he looks like we saw that film with Junior the other week. That's what he looks like. And then Johnny puts it together. They saw Frankenstein in the theater. Johnny puts it together, and Peter Lorre says, "Yes, I suppose that I had seen that movie in the theater that night, and I was intoxicated. It was just took hold in my mind, and so he accidentally gave Johnny Boris Karloff's face because he's always drunk. He's got his bottle of schnapps with him, and he always needs a drink."
I'm so glad this is not a visual because
One is just sitting there, like, taking it in slowly.
That's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
That's actually fucking brilliant.
Right?
Oh, wow.
Originally, it was just a reference to Boris Karloff being on stage because after Frankenstein came out, everyone knew him as Frankenstein. He was in other stuff. He was in the original Mummy, many things, but like he was always associated with Frankenstein. So it was just sort of a reference they threw in the play to be like, yeah, he looks like Frankenstein. He looks like Boris Karloff because his face is so unmistakable that they kind of have to lampshade it for the audiences. And then it's just become part of the lore of the play, and I think they do it in most productions.
Fuck. That's good. That's good. That is good.
The writing, this is one of the best scripts ever written. It's so tight.
My God. Okay, so you find out that Jonathan's plan is to hide out at the Brewsters.
Because they've got a body with them.
Because, yeah, they got their own body. Because Jonathan's been running around catching bodies, and that's why he keeps changing his face.
He's a serial killer that just travels the world. Peter Lorre says when they all find out that everyone's killing people, Peter Lorre says, "It's funny that we travel all across the world and they stay in Brooklyn and they do just as good as you." He's like, "No, I've done 13. No, 12, and he runs through all of them. No, you can't count the one in Cleve. You can't count him. He died of pneumonia. He wouldn't have died of pneumonia if I hadn't shot him. No, you can't count. You have 12, they have 12.
Oh my God, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Okay, okay. Okay, I'm gonna take it back. I'm taking it back. I'm taking it back. Because now when I think back to the film, I'm like, oh, it's fucking brilliant. It's fucking brilliant.
Maybe we'll do a follow-up, just a brief follow-up on this.
Yeah, maybe next week, on the next episode, I'll rechange or renege my initial thoughts. Because now I'm thinking about it and I'm like, oh, fuck.
What you said about Cary Grant's performance, I think, is still completely...
Oh no, Cary Grant's performance... Maybe I need to rewatch it again because I wasn't expecting it.
Sure.
But the whole thing with Boris, it changes a lot. It changes a lot of the jokes. Changes a lot of the jokes.
It's a very meta movie.
Because even when the police officers see him, they were like, "Hey, don't I recognize you?"
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah. Oh, fuck. Okay. You know there was when they're sort of trying to get the body inside and they discover Hoskins.
Yeah.
There was that moment where, as an audience member, right, you know there's a body in there.
Yeah.
They don't know, and you're waiting for that moment for when the connection gets made.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, they can't believe that the two old ladies are killing people.
Yeah, they think Mortimer did it.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, Mortimer's the murderer," and it's like, "Oh no, we killed them."
Yeah.
They're like,
I love the old ladies. They just speak so matter-of-factly about it.
Yeah.
They're completely out of their minds, but they speak so matter-of-factly. Earlier, Mortimer asked, like, "He died? Well, how did he die?" And Aunt Abby is just like, "He died because he drank wine with some poison in it." Like, and who put the poison in it?
The moment when he sits down for a drink,
Yeah.
when Mortimer sits down for a drink, and he's about to drink the wine, and she stops him. He's like,
don't me. I'm very nervous right now. I'm stressed.
"Oh no!" But then it's so funny because then he realizes, "Oh shit!"
Oh shit! And the old man that they're entertaining at that moment is about to drink the wine. He just yells "No!" and points like a madman.
Oh,
and he creeps
God.
towards him and says, "Do you want to be poisoned? Do you want to be strangled? Get out of here! You're gonna die!" Falls face first over a chair.
I need to watch it again.
I get what you're saying about Cary Grant's performance. He's bugging it up a lot of the time.
No, he is.
It's a very specific style of comedy, and it doesn't always work for everyone. But he is
But I
doing
can
the
see that
best.
if it-
He's doing some of the best version of that has ever been.
No, I'm gonna agree with you. Yeah, it is. Because now even when I'm rethinking all of it now, and I'm just the pieces are starting to fit together because now I've got more context. I'm understanding the background, and it's making more sense. Fuck. Fuck. Okay. Great pick. And I'm so happy that it's got nothing to do with politics.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with
Needed
politics.
some fun. you know, needed some light fun.
Uh,
Just light fun about burying bodies and murders and all that.
but the thing is, right, is that once you meet Jonathan, you meet Jonathan, you meet the aunts, and you meet Teddy, and you just go, this whole family's crazy. But you haven't seen Mortimer's crazy.
No, he's kind of losing the plot as all this is unfolding around him, and he's just growing more and more dissociated from reality. But he's not nuts like the rest of them.
But then when you start to think about it, right? Going back to Cary Grant's performance, and now why I'm changing what I was initially thinking about his performance.
Sure.
Put yourself in his shoes. He just got married.
Yeah.
He's coming home to celebrate with his favorite aunts because they're the cutest, kindest, nicest people you would ever meet. He's about to go on his honeymoon. He's happy. He finds a dead body. Fuck. Then he finds out the aunts are killing people. 12 bodies.
12 more in the basement.
In the basement. The house he's been living in. They've been killing people whilst he's been there.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to be irrational. Of course you're going to be erratic. Of course everything sort of shifts. Your whole point of view of people is going to shift. It makes so much sense. Oh, it's brilliant. I need to rewatch and study it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Different eye.
We could like do a few more thoughts now, pause this, and then come back another day and finish the episode if you want.
No, we'll finish the episode.
Follow this through. Okay.
We'll follow this through because I think as we go further along now, because even now when I think back to the film, it's changing now because my perspective now, it's like, oh yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Interesting.
But then you've got Elaine, right?
Yeah.
Because she's been out of action. And she's sort of been waiting for Mortimer to show up because throughout this whole time, whilst discovering the bodies, Jonathan showing up, they've had a cabbie waiting outside.
It's the running gags. Everyone's running across and back and forth, and it just keeps cutting past him. He's like, do you want the cab? No. At one point, Mortimer comes out, he needs to go to the judge. And so he says to the cabbie, because he's losing the plot himself, he says to the cabbie, call me a cab. The cabbie calls a cab.
There was a great moment when the cabbie, Mortimer comes out and he's trying to take Elaine back.
Yeah.
And what was it? It was about the suit. Mortimer thought he was talking about the suit.
Yeah. $22.50. And as he's talking about the meter, he's rung up a cost of $22.50, which in those days for a cab ride is insane. It's like a couple $100.
See, when I was watching it, I was like, oh, that's not bad. But then I realized, oh yeah, that is a lot. Inflation, like that is a lot. But yeah, because he's been waiting for so long, and actually, let me go back to Elaine because Elaine grows frustrated with. I don't understand why Mortimer. Well, it's a hard thing to sort of explain really quick. Like I've just discovered the bodies buried in the basement.
There's bodies in the basement. My aunts are crazy. My brother's crazy. My other brother's also crazy. Just go home, and he just keeps telling her to go get some rest.
And she is not having it. She keeps coming back, and this is. You know, it's one of those things. I call it the MJ effect, where get out of the way. You know, we just like get out of the way. You just and I understand Mortimer's point of view because I'm like get out of the way. There's bigger things to deal with.
Yeah,
you're just in the way right now.
Yeah,
You're just in the way.
You completely understand his desperation.
Yeah, you completely understand it, but then you understand where she's coming from because she just got married.
They're gonna go have a honeymoon in Niagara Falls.
Like, what's taking so long? You said you were just gonna grab some things, but now it's been so long. It's been hours.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? And you're not telling me anything. We just got married, and going from having the affection that they had with one another to leave.
Yeah.
Of course, she. What's the word? She'd be disappointed. Not necessarily disappointed. Exasperated.
Yeah, she's upset and concerned. After he's told her to go several times, she comes in the house and he's like, I don't understand what's happening. You keep telling me to go and now you're throwing me out? We just got married. He's like, I'm not throwing you out. And he literally picks her up and tosses her outside. Yeah. Just like picks her up by the waist, standing upright, and just plops her out there.
Ah, God. Then you've got the officer.
The officer with the... Please read my screenplay.
There was a great moment, and it sort of happened a couple of times when Mortimer and what's his name, Officer O'Hara.
Yeah.
They'll talk about like action in a play, like how do you devise an action in the play, and I don't know if you've got examples that they brought up, but as they were explaining the action that would sort of happen in a play, it's happening in real time. I love that.
It's the meta. I'm not sure how much stuff was doing that back in the day. Like, look at us, we're in a play. You see what's happening? I've got some of the lines from when, the cop's in and Mortimer is explaining, I saw this play the other week and it was one of these terrible things. It's going to be running forever. You'll be able to go see it. And as he's talking about this, Johnny and Einstein are creeping up behind him to tie him up. And he's like, so he finds a body in the house, and what does he do? Does he leave? No, he's just sitting there. His guard isn't up at all. Then they catch him and they tie him up. What do they tie him up with? A curtain cord. And that gives Johnny the idea to go to the window and get the curtain cord.
I loved it when he just turned and he just looked at it. It's like, oh yeah.
I should do that. And and he just sits there waiting to be gagged up and tied, the big dope. Does he leave? No. And what do? They tie him up, and then they tie him up.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Oh, he's not talking to the cop about that. He's talking to Einstein while that's happening. Okay, anyway, yeah. The writing is so clever.
But, it's that thing where, because I've seen Peter Lorre in Casablanca, obviously, but I'd never seen him in anything else. But the sort of beady-eyed exterior that he has, like this creep that he has within him, I would have loved to have met him.
Yeah.
Without the acting. Like, just meet him to see what he's like. Because what he does in Casablanca, it's similar to this. Yeah. But there's more.
This is prime Peter Lorre.
Because he's sort of like the sidekick. Well, he is the sidekick.
He's this henchman.
But he's the doctor who is helping Jonathan, but at the exact same time, you sort of question, how is this guy a doctor?
And that's the great part. He's not. Right at the end, when all the action is resolved and they've arrested Johnny and they're getting ready to send Teddy off, Einstein comes up from the basement. He tries to sneak out the house without anyone noticing because he knows the heat's on him because the cops now know that the warrant's out for him. And the police lieutenant, is sitting on the steps on the phone, listening to this warrant for the two of them. And he says, "Oh, there's another one, is there?" About 40. 5'3", 120 pounds, pop eyes, talks with a German accent, poses as a doctor. And then says, "Well, you've done a great thing. Thank you for helping us out." And Peter Lorre just slinks out right then.
See, that's where I went. Yeah, no one recognized that Dr. Einstein might not be the best name.
No.
But yeah, he his performance, right?
Yeah.
it's one of those things where and credit to all the actors and I was gonna say play. It is based on a play,
Yeah.
but everyone sort of has something to do,
Mm-hmm.
and it adds to the story. Like Jonathan and Dr. Einstein's dynamic adds to the story, and his sort of jittery and anxious sort of demeanor works well with this massive, broad stillness that's next to him, and they play off well against each other.
Yeah.
Like it's a comedy double act
Yeah.
between them. It's brilliant. I wonder, right, how they met.
How Johnny and Einstein met?
Yeah.
I don't know, because they've been working together for a while.
Is it 15 years? Is that mentioned? Or did I just make that up?
I don't remember.
I may have just made that up. Because the one of the things is that they're trying to get the new faces you mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
But Dr. Einstein really wants a drink.
Yeah.
And he says it helps with his nerves.
Yeah.
And you see him shaking as he's drinking it.
He's not in it. He doesn't like any of this. They've got Cary Grant tied up in the basement, and then like Johnny says, "We'll use the Melbourne method." And people are not the Melbourne method. It took 2 hours, and for what? The man in London was just as dead as the fellow in Melbourne. They've got Cary Grant tied up there. And he's like, "Oh no, I need a drink. I can't see this without a drink." He hates what he's doing. He doesn't like any of this murder stuff, but he's just stuck.
I wonder how. Well, it never gets into it, so we might as well speculate how Jonathan got to this point. Was he sent away? Because they never really mention. He just went away and then he comes back.
Yeah.
And they never really mention.
Left as a teenager or something, and then
Yeah. And then he's been gone for so long. And Mortimer and Jonathan never really liked each other.
No, he would torture Mortimer as a kid.
And it's because Jonathan is massive.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell he's massive. But then when he's standing next to Mortimer, you go, oh fuck, man. Cary Grant must be massive as well. You can tell he's tall, but like, he reminded me. Cary Grant's performance reminded me of someone.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say who on here.
Oh, okay.
But I want you to think who he could have reminded me of.
Okay.
And we'll talk later on.
Yeah.
But it reminded me of someone.
I've got a few things that I thought of for Cary Grant's performance in this, that he's clearly inspired people since. I thought that George Clooney has taken a lot from him. If you ever George Clooney in any comedy that he does, he's like especially Burn After Reading or he's doing a very Cary Grant thing of this sort of very affable, but kind of dorky, not in control thing. Also, Timothy Olyphant. Have you ever seen the show Santa Clarita Diet?
Yes, I have.
Timothy Olyphant in Santa Clarita Diet is so much like Cary Grant in this movie.
I get that, yeah.
He's just fumbling around and he's trying to hold on, and it's all over his head. And I love him in that show. He's one of the reasons I like that show so much. Yeah, something about this performance imprinted on me as a child.
Yeah.
This desperateness, please, I don't want to deal with this right now, please.
You then because one of the few times when, because you've got the kitchen, yes, but one of the few times you get out of the location is when Mortimer goes to, is it the judge?
Yeah.
To get the papers? Yeah. And what the judge says something. I'm forgetting what he says.
That he's gonna visit the aunt soon. He's supposed to go over to their place soon.
Yeah, I think that was it.
And he's like, no, and he's like, yes, and I've been feeling lonely, so it would be good to see them. And,
Oh yes,
and
that was it.
As Mortimer's walking out, he's like, no, don't you ever tell them that you're lonely.
Yes.
You don't drink, do you? And he's like, no, I never indulge. And he's like, okay, good. And he's walking out again. Well, except for a bit of wine every now and then.
No wine. No wine. It's actually you've got the judge. Who's the other guy? There's a guy who shows up at the house.
There's the doctor.
The doctor that shows up because he's there to examine. At the end, when he's given his diagnosis, he's like, yes, he needs to be committed straight away, because he sees him do the charge afterwards, and that charge is actually one of the most annoying things imaginable.
Yeah.
Because if anyone was doing that, if your neighbor was doing that,
every time they walk up the stairs,
you would call the police.
Mm-hmm.
You would call the police too. It's absolute insanity.
Bursting out of his room, spouting a bugle, and
it's not like he's young.
No, he's like a 40-something man.
So why they've kept this going for so long? Why Mortimer, especially, has kept this going for so long? Is one of the questions I had.
I think, he's harmless. Yeah, he thinks he's Teddy Roosevelt, but he just indulge him a little bit and nothing's gonna happen. Though they have been getting noise complaints from the neighbors, which is why the cops are ready to arrest him.
A great word.
Yeah.
Indulge.
Yeah.
There was too much indulgence. That's what I was thinking. I was like, this is how you get to this point. You've indulged in this behavior for too long that you've gotten to this point. And if you didn't indulge it, see, sometimes you need to shame people. You need to, and it's not the best thing to say, but sometimes shame is good.
Sometimes, when it comes to mentally ill people, like if you're dealing with someone having a schizophrenic episode, the advice is actually to go along with whatever they're experiencing to calm them down, because if you try to reject what they're thinking, then that just creates more problems.
But is Teddy schizophrenic?
He, maybe not in the... I don't know exactly, because I mean, this is a phenomenon where people believe that they are someone else or some historical figure. I don't know exactly what it is, and I don't think it's just schizophrenia. It's some sort of other thing. So, yeah, Teddy probably should have he should talk to someone. Someone should have checked him out.
Way before.
But then this was the 40s.
About that.
Yeah.
Because when I was watching this, one of the things I thought about was mental illness around this age.
Yes.
And how it would have been perceived. And how immediately it's like, oh, there's something wrong with him. Send him to the nut house.
Yeah. And in those days, the nut house was not... I mean, mental hospitals aren't great these days, but in those days it was just send them away, lock them up, never have to deal with them again.
And I can't even say this like with full confidence, but from my understanding, it would have been electric shock therapy.
Probably.
To get them out of it.
Sure.
There wouldn't have been like, oh, let's put them on medication and stuff like that. It's almost like get them away from society.
Lobotomies were big around then. John F. Kennedy's younger sister, I believe, was basically just a rebellious teenager. She was, going around and she was sleeping with some guys and, drinking and drugs and stuff. And her family sent her away, had her lobotomized, and locked her up for the rest of her life, to the point where the other Kennedys didn't even realize. They thought she had died or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's real fucked up.
She never came out?
No, part of her brain was gone.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. Fuck.
So...
But this is... when I said at the beginning that there was some things that I didn't like and I liked, it was the darker aspects, like the mental health aspect, that I really liked that they touched upon. Obviously in a comedic fashion, but I just thought, I don't feel like many people were really touching upon this. Even in the way, okay, maybe it's not necessarily in the most what's the word? In the most kindest fashion. But they were at least having a conversation about it.
Yeah, this movie and the play, obviously, the characters are mentally ill. It's a comedy, so it's all about the jokes. And it's not like laughing down at them. It's just these people are in a certain world of their own, and that leads to these hijinks and situations. I think a movie even acknowledging, mental illness, or like actually having someone, we need to have him put away in a sanitarium for his own good and the good of people around him, but it's not like they hate him and they just want to ignore him and want to send him away forever. It's just like, no, he needs to go. We can't help him anymore. It's becoming too much. And yeah, it's treated, for the day especially, I think it's treated quite well and with a lot of understanding. Now obviously they're quite cartoonish caricatures of certain mental illnesses, but this movie could have been a lot meaner. Because I haven't seen this in a while, I was worried going into it. It's like, all right, what about this movie is not going to have aged well?
Oh.
And there's this one moment right towards the beginning in the marriage license bureau when Mortimer's freaked out and they've gone to the telephone booth and he's explained, and they're going back in line and they're at the back of the line now. And this woman turns around and smiles at Elaine, and it's an Asian woman. And the music does this slight little Asian Chinese music stereotype thing twist on the Here Comes the Bride song.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to, well, yes, at that exact moment I was like, uh-oh. Oh no.
Oh fuck, here we go.
But then it cuts to another dude who's just got a big old smile on his face, and then the music's playing up this sort of country bumpkin-esque thing. So it wasn't nearly as bad as it could have been.
No.
It was really barely anything in the end. Maybe wouldn't do it today, but it could have gotten a lot worse. I was afraid at that point I was going to be like, all right, now how much am I going to have to preface talking about this movie?
You know what? Quick side note, because I know what my pick for next week is.
Oh.
I just want you to think about that.
Okay.
Think about that specific thing for next week.
Okay.
Because it will be interesting.
All right.
Because I've just thought about, it's what's acceptable in this day and age.
Yeah.
But then the showdown happens where the police, who is it the captain who shows up?
There's like the police captain and O'Hara are the beat cops, and then in the end the lieutenant shows up with backup. Yeah.
I loved the lieutenant.
He's no nonsense. He walks in, and it's at that point you fully realize, oh, all the cops are completely oblivious idiots.
Yeah. He's the only one who's asking the right questions.
After O'Hara has seen crimes being committed in front of his face, and he's just too excited to talk about his play script.
Only one out of all these cops who's come in and has actually done something with the time that they were in. And you understand, oh, that's why he's the lieutenant. Yeah.
But even by the end then, he lets Einstein go.
Yeah, he's still
reading out the description.
What does he say? He says something. At the beginning when he enters. I'm forgetting what he says.
He comes in after the fight has gone down and Johnny's knocked unconscious on the floor. And someone says that he looks like Boris Karloff, and then they roll him over and he's like, you idiots, the least you could do is look at the wanted posters we have up in the precinct. This is the guy. Yeah.
There's how many cops? There's O'Hara, then the captain shows up with somebody else.
Yeah.
and then lieutenant.
Yeah.
So there's 4 of them. There's 4 officers in the house, including the 2 aunts, Mortimer, Jonathan, Teddy, Einstein. That's 10. And then Elaine shows up afterwards, 11, at a certain point in the house.
You've got Mr. Witherspoon from Happy Days Sanitarium.
12.
Yep. The cabbie outside.
13. Wow.
Yeah, a lot of characters.
Wow. Wow. Okay. 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 See, I'm just gonna get to the end.
Okay.
Because I just want to get into the general thoughts. Because the big reveal happens, which is that Mortimer isn't related to the Brewsters.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not a Brewster, I'm a son of a sea cook.
and he's so happy. And I'm happy for him. Because I can understand you don't want to be part of this family.
No.
There's clearly something in the blood that runs through it. And you don't want any of that in it. And he's so elated with joy that he runs off with Elaine, and obviously that's the end of the film. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was the scene when he's tied up.
Yeah.
Because when he's tied up, see, I sort of felt like that sequence from that moment sort of epitomized his performance.
Sure.
Because he's doing a lot. Yes, you mentioned looking at the camera. He looks at the camera at that point as well.
A few times.
Yeah, a few times when he's tied up. I forgot which moment when one of the characters says something. And he looks at the camera and raises his eyes. But he's doing a lot. And I'm not even like saying that in a bad way. Because you understand his point of view of what's happening.
Yeah.
Which I think is, I don't think many actors would be able to do. I don't think many actors will be able to do, even the ones, George Clooney, Timothy Olyphant, I don't think any of those actors would be able to do what Cary Grant did in this film.
Yeah.
It's actually a masterclass. Fuck, I know I keep saying that, but I need to watch it again. Need to watch it again. I sort of feel like this past few days, I've been watching some masterclasses.
Yeah.
Cary Grant in this, Jen Hackman in Mississippi Burning, and Faye Dunaway
Network.
in Network.
Yeah.
Some masterclasses in performance. Really top-notch, layered work.
Yeah.
And different.
I mean, throw in Kevin Hart and Borderlands too. You know?
First of all, a small side note, okay? Because yes, we're talking about Arsenic and Old Lace. Highly recommend it. Watch it. See what you think for yourself. But we watched 2 fantastic films on Saturday. It was actually 3 films that we watched, but
yeah, we followed up Mississippi Burning, the classic examination of race relations.
with Borderlands.
No, there was another one first.
When did we watch Law?
That was right after Mississippi Burning.
Oh, was that right after?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we watched Mississippi Burning. Then we watched Law, and then Borderlands. Can I just say, Frank? Mississippi Burning. Yes, it talks about race, examines it, and I was looking into the background of the film, and it seemed a lot of people had problems with it. And the problems that people had, I was actually thinking about as I was watching the film, which was, where are the black people?
They weren't really the main characters in the story, which was interesting.
Yes. There was no black person in the FBI.
Yeah.
I know it's based on a true story, but even one of the locals? None?
You had the kid pop up a few times.
Yeah, but he wasn't playing a significant role.
No.
Anyway, that's not the masterpiece. The masterpiece is LOL, which for anyone who hasn't seen this, it's this brilliant film. It's initially a French film. It's got Miley Cyrus. Came out in 2008.
Miley Cyrus, Demi Moore, Tom Jane.
Great cast, by the way. Great cast. Great cast.
Way better than it deserves.
I wouldn't say that. But the film,
Yeah.
we're going to do a full review of this. I'm letting you know right now.
No, it's going to be a deep dive into it and the original French one. We're going to examine that
Yes.
like it's academia.
But it's absolutely fantastic. Watch it. Then the second one after that was Borderlands.
Yeah.
I just want to say I've played the games.
hmm
They're simple games. You shoot, you kill, you've got cool guns, some funny villains.
hmm
That's basically it. The film decided to take some stuff from the games, some stuff. I haven't played all the games, but some stuff was clearly their own.
They mashed a bit together.
Mashed some of the games together. Total bullfest. Bad. It's not even a good bad. It's just bad.
It was so clearly designed by committee, and I don't think anyone's heart was in it.
Now, with then saying all of that, Max, you said I must be a masochist because I enjoy watching bad films.
Yeah.
Going back to this film,
Yeah.
when I was watching it, I really wanted to be in this house.
Yeah.
I really wanted to be in this
You wanted
house.
to be dealing with this situation? Like, how would I manage this? What would I do?
I was really thinking, I was like, this is a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
I want to be in it. I just want to be in it. Because, there's something about being around chaos that I've realized is that if you allow yourself to be still
Mm-hmm.
within it, you see a lot.
Yeah.
You see a lot. And maybe it's my brain sees things in story form.
Mm.
So when I see chaos, it's like there's so many stories happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I've got ADHD that it keeps me engaged.
I know what you mean. That happens to me too. Plenty of moments in my life have happened, even things happening to me, and it's like, well, this is a fucked situation. God, what a great script this would make, though.
Yeah.
This is happening at the perfect time. It's all the stakes are there. Like,
Yeah, the stakes are so high right
couldn't
now.
write this better.
Yeah, like when you just think like the stakes are so fucking high right now.
Mhm.
Like this should be a fucking film.
Yeah.
And I just love it. I love the chaos.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Fuck. Maybe I need to talk about that in therapy.
Maybe.
Find out what's underneath all of that.
Yeah.
Maybe it comes back to childhood. Being around chaos.
Maybe. I mean, children who grow up in stressful environments develop various ways to deal with that, which is the cause of a lot of, various things that last into adulthood. And I mean, yeah, maybe that raises our bar, or so that our baseline is like.
But I don't feel. Were you around a lot of chaos?
As a young kid, like when I was 3 and younger, before my parents split up, there was tension, certainly. I don't remember a lot of it, though, which is interesting. Like,
You don't remember it?
no. I
Then
remember
how do you know there was chaos?
because my parents have talked to me about it. I remember,
Interesting.
I don't remember a lot from when I was like super young, 2 years old or anything, but I remember some things. I remember a lot of good things. And I remember certain bad things that happened to me, but anything that was happening outside my immediate world, but that would still bleed into my perception, like my parents arguing or something like that. I don't remember it at all. But I know that it
Interesting.
happened.
Huh.
Yeah. And I'm a bit fucked up, so.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
I think we all are. It's just being aware that you are.
Mhm.
Where some people aren't aware that they are.
Some people, I mean, honestly, if I could just live my life as Teddy Roosevelt and play my bugle and have people salute me, that doesn't sound so bad.
You know, okay, going back to the film, because we've gone on a tangent. Going back to the film. Every time Teddy meets a new character, they always have to put on a character.
They play along with him.
They play along with them. And it's interesting how you said not to break up the perception that they have.
Mm.
Because I'm trying to think, does anyone not play along? Because Jonathan tries not to. But he ends up playing along anyway.
Yeah.
Because he just gives up.
Jonathan and Einstein realize that they can use Teddy digging the locks to help them get rid of the body. That's what I mean, that this movie sort of comes at what these days would be something that you really have to examine. This movie is using it for jokes, but it's coming at it from a very just sympathetic, neutral perspective, where it's like, yeah, he thinks he's Teddy Roosevelt. We're all gonna, there's no harm in this. Officer O'Hara, he meets them for the first time at the beginning of the movie, and within minutes he's cottoned on, and as the cops are leaving, he gives them a salute, and he's nudging the police captain like, come on, Cap, give him a salute. He's the president.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. One of the things that I saw was Cary Grant talking about his own performance in this.
Yeah?
And how, apparently, I don't know if it's true, maybe it's not. Can't speak to him, so who knows.
God, I wish we could.
But apparently, he had mixed feelings about his performance. He thought it was too exaggerated. It was too big. And it was actually the director who told him to be big.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That makes sense. Cary Grant, he is one of my favorite actors. He was an absolute master of it. We're going to talk about other movies. He was in North by Northwest. That's a great Hitchcock movie where he is doing something completely different from what he's doing here. It's not a comedy at all. He can be quite understated. So this is a big departure, but he really did understand comedy. He's in some other comedies that, Bringing Up Baby, I want to talk about that at some point, about a woman who owns a leopard and he becomes entangled. Anyway, this is different from a lot of what he normally does, but he's so good at it.
You got any other thoughts?
A few more. I wrote down just a bunch of little things that tickled me over the course of the movie, and I'm not going to go through all of those because I could be here for hours. But with Cary Grant, him bigging up his performance, I understand. I completely understood at the beginning when you said that it didn't work for you, because sure, that doesn't always work. There's like Jim Carrey is a master of what he does, but his thing doesn't always work for me.
That's quite interesting. See, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Or like Will Ferrell's style of comedy. Sometimes it's great, and sometimes I am not into it at all.
Yeah.
But you can't deny the work that goes into it.
Yeah.
With Cary Grant especially in this, it's what I said towards the beginning about struggle. Struggle is comedy. When you have a certain detachment from it, he makes sure that we never feel too sorry for Mortimer throughout. And you see the struggle in everything he does. He can't get full sentences out. He's got this, good straight back posture throughout the whole thing, but then he's constantly tilting his head and bending over because he's trying to deal with the weight of everything over him. When he first sees Jonathan in the house for the first time, he's walking up the stairs and he turns around and he says, "Holy, what's that?" And he points and he does this ridiculous tilt with his head like, "What's that?" He knows exactly what he needs to do. Even if he maybe wasn't confident in it when he was making it, he knows what he needed to do. What else is there? He reminds me of Timothy Olyphant and George Clooney. Elaine kind of reminds me of Rachel Brosnahan. I don't know why that clicked in my head, but
Interesting.
it's just sort of her attitude. So many of Cary Grant's dropped sentences, especially towards the end when he's just sitting on the chair and the fight's happening off camera. Or he's sitting on the stairs and the fight's happening off camera, and he's just sitting there like, yeah, okay, no, yeah, keep fighting. Just fight it out, okay. At one point, one of the cops hits Johnny on the head, and Johnny doesn't feel pain, it seems like. He doesn't have nerve endings. At one point, Mortimer stomps on his foot and no reaction.
And he grabs
Turns down and pokes him with a fork. Nothing. And he just does this ridiculous shrug like, I guess not. The cops hit Johnny on the head with some sticks and he's like, oh no, that won't have any effect. I tried that already. So many great lines. Some other examples. So there. Okay, yeah. I want to try to keep my thoughts streamlined and not just Rolodex quotes. There's that style of comedy where Cary Grant is exasperated, but resigned, and he's doing it so well. And for me, this time especially, I was just, even if the other jokes, which are good, but I've seen iterations on that, and they didn't make me laugh out loud, that was keeping me floating in this level of amusement at it all, where I was just having a good time the whole way through watching it. But then there's other things which are just great comedy bits. The cinematography is used very well for comedy and for dramatic effect, like when Johnny is at the top of the stairs threatening Abby to come upstairs and she's at the bottom, but he's very small but up in the background and she's very nervous down in the foreground. Or when him and Einstein are in the basement and it's just his shadow on the wall. And Peter Lorre is dwarfed by
that
it.
shot.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that shot. Because he's not even, well, they're talking to each other, but you don't see Johnny's face. You just see his shadow. And it's so, there was a point when it enlarges. It's almost like he's moving forward.
Yeah, he's moving towards the light, and so it just grows and dwarfs Einstein.
Oh, yeah, that was a beautiful shot.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful shot.
Interesting what you said about the music up front, because yes, this music is much more obtrusive than something in Casablanca.
Obtrusive, that's
Yeah.
a great word. Yes.
Did it annoy you over the course of it?
No. It doesn't annoy me. Like I said 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Doesn't annoy me. I think I'm just aware of it now. Where I'm like, oh yeah, okay. But it's not like, I understand why you'd use it. It's almost like, I think now in this day and age, you'd see, if you were to see that in a film, you'd sort of go, oh really?
Yeah.
But in some aspect, if you did see that today, it might actually be interesting.
The way this movie uses it is great. Well, we will eventually, by chance or because I specifically want to make you suffer through it, get to a movie where the score is awful and annoying and you just want it to shut the fuck up and let the actors do their thing. In this one, it's a lot more obtrusive than Casablanca. There's a lot more of it. But this one is specifically using the music and the rhythm of the comedy, like with Abby's little trot that she does.
Yeah.
It's using... And then when the moments are more tense and the suspense is rising and Johnny is looming all over the place, it's playing like horror stings and very suspenseful. Ooh. It's using that genre to elevate the world into this semi-parody thing.
See, that's why it doesn't bother me, because if it elevates the story, I'm okay with it. It's when it gets in the way, that's when I think it will start to bother me. Where I'm like, there's absolutely no reason. Whereas even that little part with the aunt, it was like, yeah. It adds to the story. It adds to a character.
Yeah.
Because you understand the whimsical nature of her. That, And it felt like I was in this. I'm gonna use the expression like what's the film Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
Like for a second, I actually never seen that film, but when I think of Wizard of Oz, I think whimsical.
Yeah, sure.
I think whimsical. Yeah. So no, it doesn't bother me. It's more towards if it adds to the story, if it elevates it to the point where it's not in the way, or I'm questioning why did you add this, then I'm completely fine with it. It's when it doesn't that. And I haven't seen we haven't picked a film where I've gone, why is this here?
Yeah.
But we will. I feel like we've picked good films.
Yeah. Well, we have very good taste, Tawana.
And I feel like I know what I'm gonna pick next week. But I might change it.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't know, was it last week or the week before when you said one of us hasn't picked a bad film?
Yeah, none of us have fired the first shot.
Yeah. And I feel like maybe it's time.
Uh-oh.
Maybe it's time to fire the first shot.
Uh-oh.
But I'll see if I change my mind.
See, I think of LOL as the nuke.
But no, that doesn't count.
We've got to build to that one.
That doesn't count. I don't think people are ready.
No.
Because I don't think many people have seen that film.
No, I
didn't even know it existed until the first time we watched it.
No, I don't know why we put it on. We've seen
I don't even know why we put it on.
We've seen it twice, which is much more than I think almost anyone else in the world.
But I enjoyed it better the second time. Way more. I remember more than the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember more. I get it now. But we'll get into it. We'll get to that one. We'll get to that one. Anything else?
Yes. I had one thought about the music when you said about things doing it these days. The closest thing I can think of that uses music like this movie does that is modern is 30 Rock.
Oh, yeah.
If you've ever seen that.
Yeah, I have seen it. Yeah.
That is very much using the music to elevate the comedy bits, to give you genre clues so that you know what a character's shtick is, so then they can play with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
especially with Alec Baldwin.
Yes, exactly.
There's a lot of it, yeah. So
it can be done. It just doesn't get done much anymore.
But that's I feel like that's different because that's a sitcom, and number one, I don't feel like they're making sitcoms like that anymore.
No.
I don't even know if they're still making sitcoms.
They try.
Abbott Elementary is probably the biggest sitcom right now.
Yeah.
I know people talk to me about The Bear. I haven't seen it.
That's not a fucking comedy show.
But that's the thing. A lot of people are like, it's not a comedy.
Yeah.
But it's always nominated in comedy categories.
Mm-hmm.
Which flips a lot of people. And I can't even explain. I can't even say anything because I've never seen it. So I'm not going to talk about something I haven't seen. But yeah, it does. It can work. Mm-hmm. It's just about finding the right thing where it does fit. Huh.
Yeah. I guess the last thing I really want to talk about. God, I love this movie. I could talk about it forever. The last example of the way this movie knows how to use comedy so well, the clock running gag bit.
Yeah.
The running gags throughout it, people freaking out over the window seat and the cabbie outside and all this. I think it's encapsulated best with this running gag where whenever Teddy runs up the stairs and slams his door, the grandfather clock downstairs, the hands just fall and droop to the bottom and it dings. And it happens for the first time, and we're like, oh, that's a bit. And Mortimer's sort of alarmed, like, is the clock doing this? We need to get this fixed. Then it happens again a few minutes later, and then rule of threes, it's coming again. but it happens off screen. It's set up so that we know this is the thing. When the door slams, the clock makes the ding. Teddy runs upstairs, slams the door, and the camera stays focused on him with the door, but then we just hear the ding. And it's such a brilliant way to resolve that 1, 2, 3 setup that is still subverting what you're going to think about it. It's the same thing with Cary Grant finding the body in the window seat. You're expecting it. It's not showing you, but then it gives it to you. It's just this little way to draw the joke out and squeeze a little bit more juice out of it so that when it hits even harder than it would have than just a standard 1, 2, 3 punchline. And then they get even more mileage out of it as the movie goes on, because the next time it slams, Abby's down there holding the hands up so that it doesn't ding. And then by the end of the movie, it happens again, and Mortimer's doing it. And one of the aunts goes over to stop it, and Mortimer's just like, oh, don't worry, darling, I've got it. So it's this brilliant 1, 2, 3 execution, and then it keeps squeezing it, and it's funny and original and iterative each time. So good. So good.
Wow. It's... I need to watch it again.
We'll put it on this week at some point.
Yeah. Listen, if you've gone this far, we highly recommend this film. I have even changed my initial thoughts on the film throughout this conversation. I'm going to watch it again. Last thoughts.
Yeah, please.
I did not give this film credit enough, and I should have. Well, actually, no. No.
Yeah.
That's fine, because I didn't have the context. Now I've got more context. Now I know, so when I go back and watch it, it's going to be a different experience, which I'm looking forward to. But I enjoyed the darker elements initially, and less so the comedy. But now that we've gone through it, and I'm really understanding, like even we mentioned the Boris Karloff bit, just that bit itself is so layered and so thoughtful.
Yeah.
Granted, if you don't know, it means nothing. But when you do know, it changes a lot. Because now, every single time, you're like, oh, yeah, it hits differently. And I think that's a good thing. It is a good thing. It is a good thing. Your final thoughts?
Yeah, it's I get what you're saying about the darker stuff. I do love it. It's just this bed to the whole movie that it kind of takes for granted in a way that probably would have gone over audiences' head a lot back in the day. I can't imagine a lot of audiences were even really thinking about the very dark implications. There's this one throwaway line where Abby's talking about Teddy. One last quotes from the bits. Witherspoon, the head of the sanitarium, is like, "Oh, having Teddy would be kind of difficult right now. You see, we've got a lot of Teddy Roosevelts. We could really use more Napoleons." Like they're trading cards or something. Anyway, Abby says that when he was a kid, they said, maybe Teddy, instead of this, you'd like to be George Washington. And she says, but then Teddy just hid under his bed and refused to be anybody. Which is really dark and existential. And it's just snuck in there.
We're about to finish, but I just have to ask, why does he want to be Teddy Roosevelt? Why Teddy Roosevelt? Because his name is Teddy?
Well, no, they call him Teddy because he wants to be Teddy Roosevelt.
What's his real name then?
Everyone just calls him Teddy. He's been Teddy Roosevelt since he was a kid. He's got, if we want to talk like real about it, he's got some psychological thing that makes him want to reject the world around him and wants to put him in his own little fantasy of being Teddy Roosevelt.
Don't blame him.
He talks about Teddy Roosevelt's life non-linearly. He's got like a biography, and he says to Peter Lorre, "That's you. You're the general in this picture. But we haven't taken this picture yet. That doesn't happen until after I'm out of office, when we're on expedition or whatever."
That was the thing. He knew so much about Teddy Roosevelt's life. You're like, Okay, if he's an actor, he studied this guy. He's studied this guy. He's Daniel Day-Lewis to this guy.
He fully believes he is Teddy Roosevelt.
And there's absolutely, well, besides the mental illness thing, there's absolutely no reason why he picked him.
No, seems kind of random. There's a throwaway joke where he says, "And after I leave office, a Roosevelt will never become the president again." This movie came out in 1944 when Franklin Delano Roosevelt was president. And Witherspoon gives him a weird look. But yeah, I love the line about he refused to be anyone for 2 weeks straight. Because it's so dark and it's so a person that doesn't want to accept their own reality.
Yeah.
He can't be himself, so he has to be someone else entirely. Yeah, it's fucked up, but it's just sort of...
Don't blame him. Let him be Teddy.
Seems like a good life.
If we could all do it, we would. Who would you be if you could pretend to be one person?
If I could pretend to be one person? Oh, fuck, I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe... some... Shakespeare. Fuck it. I'll take credit for Shakespeare. Everyone's talking about like, oh yeah, To Be or Not to Be, it's one of the greatest speeches ever written, and I just walk in like, thank you very much, yeah. Took a lot of thought, that one.
I would love that if you just walked to the Globe and just suddenly said, "This is wrong. You're playing it wrong."
That's not what I wrote.
Yeah, and everyone's like, "What the fuck?" You're like, "I wrote this." And when they're escorting you out and you're busy, like, absolutely passionately saying, "This is my play."
Mm-hmm.
You're doing it wrong. He was never intended for this. Why is there a woman playing a man? Why are all these women here? I would love that. I would love that. That's a great sketch.
It's a great sketch. It's a great character. I thought more, but I don't want to say it because I want to write it.
Yeah, we just gave away a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's something in that.
It's recorded here. We had it first.
Yeah. There's something here. Sorry, tangent. Final thoughts.
Dark stuff is great. This comedy, it's so important to me and so influential to me in ways that I don't even fully realize. It's been delighting and fascinating to see your thoughts change on it over this episode. And I mean, I was all ready to have like, let's go into why it doesn't work for you, because comedy is very subjective.
Yeah, it would be interesting if I still feel the same way.
Yeah, because that's with Cary Grant's performance. It is big and it's swinging for the fences, and I think, yeah, sometimes it's a bit much. I love it when it's great that it's carrying me through it, but that still might be there. But the craft that went into this is...
Yeah, you can always appreciate the craft.
Yeah.
Always appreciate the craft.
Yeah.
No one's taken an easy pass. Which, probably, the biggest compliment you can give is that you may not like something, or something might not resonate with you, but you can never say, oh, they sort of phoned it in.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the worst.
Mm-hmm.
That,
like Borderlands.
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
not everyone was phoning. Kate Blanchett wasn't phoning it in.
Yeah. The material wasn't great.
No.
The material wasn't great.
No.
But that's the episode for this week.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to us on Spotify.
I'm getting it up. I'm figuring out. It's been difficult, but I'll wrangle it.
YouTube. Wherever else you listen to podcasts. We're around in the multiverse. Maybe when you listen to this, we won't be around. That's morbid. We laugh, but it's true.
Mm-hmm. So this is what he thought about movies before he went on that murder spree. Fascinating.
Imagine.
One of these is used as evidence in a trial.
Yeah, like, you said this on episode 3 of your podcast. And it's like, oh yeah, I did. That was a joke though.
Inadmissible performance
Yeah.
satire.
I think I do want to preface this. I hope no one takes what we say seriously. And I feel like it's quite clear when we're joking and when we're not.
Yeah. When we're having fun, we're having fun.
Yeah,
And,
it's
we're
two friends talking.
yeah.
It's not supposed to be serious.
And when we get heavy, I think we're quite thoughtful about it. I'm open to criticism and having my mind changed.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're just two dudes.
Two dudes. And we're not saying that as a cop-out because, to
No.
be honest with you, we don't really care about what anyone says. But that's... that's just us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, stay safe out there. It's crazy. Stay healthy. Have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see you next week with... Not gonna say.
All right. Save the reveal. Peace.
Peace.